massive shelling of Ukraine, the evacuation of our people from Iran, and $1 million for a psychiatrist without any bribes. How is the verbal spat between the MP and the singer Topolia unfolding? I'll tell you about this and more in the upcoming segment. I'm Solomia Vitvitska, and this is TSN. Subscribe to our YouTube channel, watch our broadcasts, and be sure to comment on what you found most interesting. Here are a few of today's topics. Dnipro under fire. Where did the Russians strike right in broad daylight? And what's happening now at the sites that were hit? A summit costing $1 million per minute.
These two countries fought so long ago and so fiercely that they have no idea what the hell they're even doing. You get it?
Will Zelensky and Trump meet at the NATO summit in The Hague? And what statements have already been made? How do you fit both Trump and Zelensky into one summit, avoid any new conflicts, and hope there won't be any scandalous statements? The 34th NATO summit is kicking off in The Hague, and it's been narrowed down to a single session. It will last 2.5 hours. It was planned that the discussion there would focus exclusively on increasing defense spending to 5%. However, the heads of NATO member states simply can't avoid discussing the consequences of the American strike on Iran. TSN special correspondent Janis Lyserchuk reports on what's happening behind the scenes at the summit, right at this very moment.
The 34th NATO summit is the first ever held in the Netherlands. And of course, it had to be this one that turned out to be so crucial. Security measures here are at the highest level, because after the American strikes on Iran, anything can be expected. But what we definitely do not expect is for the alliance member states to completely forget about Ukraine, even if that's what the American president might want.
Back in Washington, we decided that Ukraine's path to NATO is irreversible. And right now, as we speak, we are building this bridge. Of course, I can't say anything yet about the upcoming final declaration of the summit, but we can definitely expect some very important words about Ukraine and support for Ukraine from there.
Until the very last moment, there were doubts about whether Volodymyr Zelensky would come here after the summit was reformatted into such a display of minimalism. He is speaking at the Defense Industries Forum and holding a joint meeting with Secretary General Rutte, President of the European Council Antonio Costa, and President of the European Commission Ursula von der Leyen.
Technically, we are capable of producing over 8 million different types of drones per year, but we don't have enough money for that. At the same time, Russia is using not only oil revenues to fund the war, but also resources from other regimes like North Korea and Iran. I ask you to make sure that your countries or your companies do not help Russia and its allies. This is extremely important. No significant weapon in Russia is produced without components purchased from other countries, unfortunately, including some countries in Europe or even NATO.
Zelensky himself stated that a meeting with Trump is being planned. He said that teams from both sides are currently preparing for this meeting. But it will take place, if it happens at all, no earlier than this evening or possibly even tomorrow. After all, Trump won't arrive in The Hague until after the dinner, or, more precisely, the formal luncheon being hosted here by His Majesty, the King of the Netherlands, to mark the opening of the summit. In fact, President Zelensky is also expected to attend that event. The American president, unless something changes in the next few hours, is likely to arrive in the Netherlands angry because Israel and Iran, despite his recent calls for peace, have exchanged strikes. And this led to a harsh outburst of swearing on live television just before he boarded the plane. Just in case, we'll translate it a bit more mildly.
These two countries have been fighting for so long and so fiercely that they have no idea what the hell they're even doing anymore. You get it?
Trump's frustration is easy to understand, since the United States essentially became a party to this conflict after the American strikes on Iran. So one way or another, this topic will definitely be discussed tomorrow, either around or even during the only official meeting of NATO heads of state, which will start at 11:30 a.m. Kiev time tomorrow. Nearly half of all law enforcement officers in the Netherlands, along with 10,000 military personnel, are working around the clock to ensure that this summit goes smoothly and quietly, safeguarding security on land, in the air, and at sea. Reporting from The Hague, Yana Sisarchuk, Andriy Marchenko, TSN 1+1. And now, more details about the Middle East, which caused Trump to lose his temper and start swearing. The American president told reporters that he was extremely dissatisfied with the start of mutual shelling, especially by the Israeli side. On the social network Truth Social, Trump wrote in all caps to Tel Aviv, "Don't drop bombs. If you do, it will be a major violation. Bring the pilots home immediately." End of quote. According to Trump, the reason for the breakdown of the ceasefire was a missile from Iran, which was allegedly launched by accident. The ceasefire was violated just a few hours after it was supposed to begin. Almost immediately, Israel's defense minister ordered intensive strikes in response to Iran, and supposedly Tel Aviv hit a radar site. There are casualties on both sides as a result of the shelling. In Tehran, officials are denying any violation of the ceasefire. At the same time, the Israeli Prime Minister's office, after talks with the Americans, promised not to drop any more bombs. Earlier, Israel announced that it had agreed to the peace proposal because it had achieved its objectives, namely, eliminating the threat of nuclear weapons use and inflicting serious damage on Iran's military leadership. As for the Iranians, according to CNN, it was the Prime Minister of Qatar who persuaded them. And all of this is happening against the backdrop of Iranian forces having shelled American military bases in Qatar and Syria the day before. This shelling was Iran's response to the United States dropping bombs on Iranian nuclear facilities, specifically targeting the underground center in Fordow, which was located inside a mountain. How might the escalation in the Middle East affect Ukraine's future? What do you think? Share your thoughts with us in the comments below this broadcast on YouTube. And of course, don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. In the meantime, I'll continue with the TSN broadcast. A joint operation by the Defense Intelligence of Ukraine and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs of Ukraine, 31 of our fellow citizens were successfully evacuated from Iranian territory. This includes 5 men, 12 women, and 14 children. The evacuation was carried out via transit through Azerbaijan to Moldova. All these people are now on their way to Kiev, and this was the final stage of the complex operation by the main intelligence directorate and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs to rescue Ukrainian citizens from high-risk areas. The day before, 176 people were evacuated from Israel, of whom 133 are Ukrainian citizens. "17 people have already died, and more than 170 have been injured. Doctors are fighting for the lives of the most seriously wounded. These are the consequences of the missile attack on Dnipro and its suburbs. And these numbers are not final, because debris is still being cleared at the sites of the strikes. Russian terrorists attacked the region with Iskander missiles. One of the missiles exploded near a passenger train. There is widespread destruction in the city. Tomorrow has been declared a day of mourning in Dnipro. Old Pavlovska will tell you more about the Russian terror next."
Explosions one after another around 11 o'clock in the morning. The Russians struck Dnipro and the suburbs with 4 Iskander missiles. Massive fires broke out. This is the Odessa-Zaporizhzhia train, which was just approaching Dnipro and was carrying 500 people. The windows in the train cars were blown out, and some passengers were injured.
All the passenger cars are in this condition. The windows were shattered, and passengers were injured by shrapnel. The locomotive was damaged.
We were riding in this car, and that's where it hit. The explosion was so strong that I fell down.
There are fatalities in Dnipro and Samara, and the number of wounded is in the hundreds, including dozens of children. The youngest victim is only 6 months old. These are the first minutes after the strikes. The injured Mrs. Lyubov is waiting for her turn to go into her home to get documents and any belongings that survived. Nothing is left of the place where she lived with her 2 children.
My arm is bruised. There's shrapnel in my arm, and my legs are cut up. fear and deafness. My left ear was deafened.
As a result of the strikes, 2 dormitories were destroyed. Hundreds of people were left homeless, with nothing but the clothes on their backs.
We heard the sound and rushed into the hallway. I opened the iron front door, and the blast wave injured me. How did you stay alive? I don't know.
Olga and her mother have found themselves out on the street for the 2nd time now. They are displaced persons from Bakhmut. They say they're running from the war, but it keeps catching up with them.
I had just reached the door, didn't have time to enter the room, when it hit and everything started collapsing. The neighbor went into the room, and she was injured. If I had gone in, I would have been injured too.
Dozens of private homes nearby were damaged. People say they didn't have time to get to safe places.
An explosion, and then flames from over there, and then the smoke started rising. And a second explosion, and again fire, and a big piece flew across the sky.
A heavy explosion.
A powerful explosion. The child ran in, shaking all over. Another explosion, and everything went that way. The garage doors swung open the other way.
They hid in the bathroom with the children and eventually managed to get out, says Miss Karina. She says her hands have been shaking for hours after what she went through.
We went into the bathroom.
We were sitting in the bathroom, and then I saw the window fly out. The closed doors burst open, and then we ran to the shelter over the debris.
Hospitals, clinics, and more than 30 schools and kindergartens were damaged as a result of the attack. At this gymnasium, 3 staff members were injured. The preschoolers were managed to be taken down to the shelter in time. Now, all the floors are covered in glass. In the kindergarten group next door, the windows were blown out and the wall was literally bent. A class for the little ones was just about to start here.
Some of the kids were outside playing in the sandbox. Others were getting ready for class and went down to the shelter, and then it started. What started?
Children's toys are mixed with glass, fragments of walls, and furniture. But most importantly, there are no casualties, says the director.
The children are all fine. They cried, of course, but everything is okay. All the parents picked them up, everything. Everyone is alive.
The extent of the destruction is still being determined. Dozens of cars, public transport, shops, businesses, a church, the organ music hall, and the ice arena have been damaged. The number of injured continues to rise. Ol Pavlovska, Anastasia Naverna, Alexander Kulish, and Vlad Komishin. Dnipro, TSN 1+1.
A hellish day in the Sumy region. Russian war criminals killed 3 people there, including a child, and wounded 19 others. The number of wounded in Putyvl has risen to 11. There, an enemy drone struck the city center. Among the victims are 2 children, aged 6 and 16, and a pregnant woman. She was taken to the hospital. In the Hlukov community, a child was also injured by an FPV drone strike, and in Krasnopilia, a man was wounded. And in the village of Velikiy Babrik, the occupiers launched 8 Shahid drones at once. All of them hit the same street, causing massive destruction and fires. Emergency workers had to put out fires in 15 buildings at the same time. The body of a 5-year-old boy was recovered from under the rubble. An elderly woman and a 52-year-old man also did not survive the enemy attack. 6 more residents were injured, including a 12-year-old boy and 2 17-year-old girls. The attack drones completely destroyed 7 residential buildings. More than 20 homes and 6 cars were damaged.
The enemy continues its actions aimed at destroying the civilian population and is essentially waging war against our civilian infrastructure and peaceful residents. At the moment, we have information about 3 people killed, including 1 child.
It is a day of mourning in Bilhorod-Dnestrovsky in the Odessa region. There, they are honoring the victims of the Russian attack. The day before, 2 ballistic missiles struck the building of a lyceum. 2 staff members died at the scene, and another kitchen worker passed away soon after in the hospital. 14 people were injured. TSN correspondent Alina Chernyaeva will tell you more next.
Smashed desks and blackboards, hallways flooded with water. No windows, no walls, an entire floor completely destroyed. Smoke rises above the ruins. 2 ballistic missiles hit the Lyceum building one after another and destroyed it.
2 powerful explosions. There hasn't been anything like this before. Before, they used drones, but this is the first time for something like this. Last week there were balloons here, graduation ceremonies. This week, there's no school anymore.
The missiles hit around 2:30. It was the middle of the workday. Luckily, it's summer break, so there were no more events or clubs for the kids. There were 18 staff members at their workplaces in the educational institution. 2 died on the spot, the deputy principal and the head of maintenance. About an hour after the search and rescue operations began, rescuers freed a cafeteria worker from under the rubble and handed her over to the medics. Unfortunately, the 60-year-old woman died in the hospital a few hours later. Until late at night, students and teachers kept vigil near the tape cordoning off the search area, waiting to hear that no one else was trapped under the rubble.
What can we expect here? Confusion, fear, pain. Yesterday was graduation. At this very time, we were all here.
It's hard to believe, but just the day before, music and laughter filled the schoolyard. The senior students danced the waltz and said goodbye to their school. And now, townspeople are clearing the rubble of the destroyed school together with the rescuers.
We have to help. This is our city. This is our Ukraine. Our people are fighting, and we help however we can here, because we are all family. We are Ukrainians.
Among the injured are 2 senior students. One of them not only managed to get out from under the rubble, but even wounded, he pulled his friend out. Both are now in the hospital with serious injuries, but their lives are not in danger.
He really is a hero. He not only got out of the basement himself, but also saved his friend.
There were no reports of missing persons, but the service dogs were acting as if someone was still under the rubble.
He searches for people by detecting their breathing. We were working at the site of the collapse. Several different dogs were working. A few dogs gave signals, but they're still digging and will keep working.
The enemy has significantly intensified attacks on Odessa and the Odessa region. Attack drones are terrorizing people every night and even during the day. The Russians are targeting hospitals, schools, and residential buildings.
Just 2 days ago in Bilhorod-Dnestrovsky, the emergency medical aid facility was completely destroyed. 7 vehicles burned down. Our blood transfusion center was badly damaged. In the past week, it was hit twice. In the city center, apartment buildings were also damaged when drones flew in.
Today in Bilhorod-Dnestrovsky is a day of mourning for those killed in the treacherous missile strike on the Lyceum. Alina Chernyaeva, Ivan Savchenko, Odessa region, TSN 1+1.
In the Shevchenkivsky district of Kiev, the search and rescue operation was completed this morning. The day before, a Russian missile in the capital claimed the lives of 9 people, including an 11-year-old girl. A 9th grader from a neighboring school instantly became an orphan. At the site of the strike, emergency repair work is ongoing, with specialists dismantling dangerous structures. SN correspondent Dmitro Ferdak visited the scene and will tell us more.
More than a day after the Russian terrorist attack, no one is searching for the dead or wounded here anymore. Now, emergency workers are making sure that the remaining structures don't cause even more harm.
Our building is in a critical condition, as you can see, so we have to make sure that the existing floors and walls don't collapse. So we're carrying out all the emergency rescue operations very carefully to remove these dangerous structures and take them away, so that they won't pose a threat to people in the future.
For their own safety, even the residents aren't allowed into the destroyed building. However, not everyone understands these precautions. There are emotional reactions. That's why psychologists from the State Emergency Service are on duty for such cases.
They need informational support. We provide not only psychological assistance, but also serve as a bridge between the rescuers and the civilians. For example, they need to know how long the work will last, whether there are people under the rubble, and so on. The more information they have, the less stress and anxiety they feel.
Specialists give advice for situations when there are no professional psychologists nearby.
If someone wants to cry, you should let them cry, and not say, "Don't cry, everything will be fine." Say, "I'll be here with you," and then ask this affected person for help. Ask them to help, to bring something, to sweep, to take something out.
At the site where the Russian missile hit, locals are submitting claims for compensation for lost property. These are being accepted by government agencies, international organizations, charitable foundations, and regular volunteers.
We approach people and ask if they need our help and what exactly they need. We take the request, so to speak, the application, and then pass it on to our volunteers. The volunteers come, start boarding up windows, cleaning up, and so on, basically. This is done completely free of charge.
Another Russian terrorist attack in the Shevchenkivsky district of Kiev killed a young couple, Volodymyr Mozychuk and Anna Pavlik. They met at work and lived together. And a direct hit by a Russian ballistic missile instantly made a student from a nearby school an orphan. 15-year-old Kirilo Alexienko had just gone to visit his grandmother outside the city, while his mother, father, and grandfather were killed in the house. The boy's teachers and classmates set up a fundraising account to help Kirilo. Dmitro Ferdak, Alexander Shayen, TSN 1+1.
Small enemy assault groups and constant shelling from artillery and FPV drones. The situation is tense now on the Lyman section of the front. In the past day, 24 Russian assaults were stopped there. The heaviest pressure is near the villages of Tverdoplaibov, Ritkadub, Karpivka, and Rikivka. According to the Kortitsia Operational Strategic Group, no positions have been lost, while analysts from the Deep State portal note that the enemy has made some advances near Rikivka, as well as near Nelipivka, Romanivka, Holyubivka, and Leonidivka. All of these locations are in different areas, with the last one, in particular, being south of Toretsk. It is precisely in this direction and toward Kramatorsk that enemy activity is quite high. The occupiers launched 40 assaults there. Most of the fighting took place near Chasiv Yar, Yablonivka, and Plishchivka. Today alone, the enemy attacked our military positions over 6,000 times using various types of heavy weaponry, dropped 72 guided aerial bombs, and carried out 36 airstrikes. But the soldiers of the Ukrainian Defense Forces responded with dignity. More than 1,000 occupiers were wounded or killed. At least 17 areas where Russian personnel and weapons were concentrated were hit, as well as a command post, several dozen armored vehicles and artillery pieces, and a whole series of boats and vessels carrying occupiers near the Tendrivska spit in the Kherson region.